I think a lot of times creators try and fill these home workouts with some potentially subpar movements and some movements that could arguably be a waste of time just to make it look fun and exciting, when the reality is simple is usually effective. I've got a bloody cat in front of me that's purring away as I'm trying to do this video, but we're going to crack on anyway, and hopefully she doesn't do something to the keyboard that ruins this video. Basically, LeanBeefPatty, someone I'm a big fan of, somebody I've spoken about before on the channel, has actually done a home push workout in under 10 minutes, which is actually quite exciting because she doesn't really do many home workouts. I thought it'd be quite an interesting one to cover before discussing a more problematic video in the next video on Monday. Before we crack on, obviously we're going to see that there's a lot of mobility and warming up. A lot of creators obviously do include a warm-up as part of their routine. Most of them tend to kind of make it quite brief and quite short. The one thing I've really always appreciated about Patty and what she's done is she's always made the warm-ups pretty extensive, so I'm happy with that. I'm not going to have any audio playing because I think it's probably a bit more beneficial if I just speak from how I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, but Patty has basically said how it's going to be 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off. So it's like a 1-1 split, which is quite common in the realm of HIIT as well, where they do 1-1 or maybe 1-2, things along those lines, depending on your fitness levels. So obviously at the moment we're starting with very simple movement and very fundamental movement for any kind of push variation, I'd say, which is going to be a press up. Again, she's actually giving us alternatives here for like maybe a slightly easier modification, in which case the press up's been done on the knees. You can see her feet are off the ground. That's very important. Quick note to that actually throw in there is that if you do find it uncomfortable doing press ups with your knees on the ground, please put a pillow under them or something of sorts, because it may be a bit nicer on the kneecaps and whatnot. Also, we've got a nice variation there as well, where we're kind of getting a bit of an angle as well. I respect it. The big thing here that I really like about the press up is her range of motion. See, maintaining a very flat, neutral spine, all the way down, chest just above the floor, coming back up, allowing the elbows to tuck. A lot of people tend to flare their elbows when they are doing press ups. That's going to make it a bit harder to go through that full range of motion, where if you do tuck the elbows, you may find it actually easier to reach the floor and also a bit more comfortable on the shoulders. When you flare, like so, about 90 degrees or so, range of motion is very limited. You tuck, you can probably get a lot lower, more comfortably and much easier. The next exercise is actually a variation of the press up, being the eccentric press up. This essentially means you're going through the eccentric portion of the rep, which is the way down, really slowly, really controlled before then coming back up. Funnily enough, if you actually do struggle with press ups, you can implement eccentric press ups into your routine without the way up. So you essentially do the slow way down, like 4 seconds on the way down, rest, reset, come back up, start from the top again, and to repeat like that. Same with pull-ups. If you're struggling with pull-ups, you can do eccentric pull-ups where you only do the lowering portion of the rep and then jump up to the start to go again. Time under tension, that kind of realm of things, is largely overrated in most applications for hypertrophy, so the building of muscle. But when you are limited to home workouts and no equipment perhaps, adding in variations of already good movements like press-ups, then let's say tempo press-ups, eccentric press-ups, close grip press-ups, things like that are going to be a good time, because you're going to be working a lot of the muscles you want to work as part of the push workout, but you're not going to be filling those workouts with maybe ineffective or maybe subpar movements. You're instead just going to be doing variations of a very good movement, being the press up here. And now we're actually going to a diamond press up. So this will actually encourage you to keep your upper arm a lot closer to the body, which then may actually involve a lot more of the triceps. Obviously still good for the pecs and whatnot, of course, but when your arms are a bit closer to the body, you are going to be involving a bit more of the triceps here, almost mimicking somewhat of like a close grip bench press. The thing to note when you're doing a lot of these pressing variations, obviously your tricep is split into 3 heads. Tri meaning 3. So you've obviously got the medial, which is like underneath this bit here. Then you've got the lateral, which is this short bit here, and then you've got the long head, which is this juicy bit under here. Although you can't isolate a singular head, the medial and the lateral heads are going to be the big primary movers of pressing variations. So when you're doing like close grip variations like this, the long head involvement might be reduced slightly to then put a bit more emphasis on the medial and lateral heads. So that's just something to note if you do care about maybe biasing certain heads a bit more with your tricep training. I think it's also key very quickly to throw in before we continue with the video, regardless of whether you're doing the best program in the world and training as effectively as possible, one thing you do need to prioritize, especially if you're looking at building muscle, will be nutrition. And again, this is very much dependent on the person and potentially your relationship with food, but making sure your protein intake's high and meeting all your kind of nutrient goals is obviously going to be very important, and nutrition is going to be very important when it comes to progress. And conveniently, now we're speaking about nutrition, that actually kind of segues onto the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. And HelloFresh aren't a meal prep company per se. No, they're a bit different. What they do is they provide you with all of the ingredients and recipe card you need to create the meal yourself. They're convenient, they're flexible, and they often come with a lot of really cool variations and recipes for you to try at home, which can accommodate many different dietary preferences, be that lower calorie options, maybe being higher protein options, or maybe even simply family options, things along those lines. And conveniently, if you click the link down below in the description, you can actually get my exclusive discount, which is going to be 60% off your first order and 25% off your first 2 months. Like with all these integrations, all these sponsorships, I'm never going to say you have to do anything. Just know that obviously I'm working alongside this company. I've used this company before. They've sent me lots of products for me and my family to try and to eat, which we have done. And I was a fan. And as I often do promoting videos, if I'm a fan of something, I might promote it to you with the idea that maybe somebody watching this might be a fan too. As always, I'm never going to work with a company I don't believe in. I'm never going to work with a company that I could deem to be potentially harmful or problematic, and I don't deem HelloFresh to be any of those things. But what I do deem them to be is very flexible and convenient, especially if you have a busy home life. Sometimes we often do find it quite hard to think of meals and recipes that do kind of align with our desires, be that high protein, low calorie, whatever it may be. So HelloFresh can simply be a means of helping you tick that box without thinking too much about it. They kind of do all the work for you. They provide you the ingredients, they provide you with the recipes. All you really have to do is tell them what you're looking for and you're done. Like I said, please never feel like you're pressured into clicking the link in my description. Just know that if you do so, you will obviously, like I said earlier, get 60% off your first order and 25% off your first 2 months. And obviously it does very much help the channel out. Regardless, I appreciate you for tolerating this waffle. And I also really appreciate HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. But now, as always, we'll get back to the waffle at hand. So next is going into shoulder taps, which although technically you would say it is a push movement, you're not actually going through a mass range of motion. So some people actually argue that this is more of a core movement because you're maintaining this somewhat plank position. That being said, because obviously a lot of your weight will be shifting on one side, the shoulder's obviously going to be working, the chest is obviously going to be working, and the triceps are going to be working too. I think she did this for demonstration purposes, but that's what we want to try and avoid. We want to try and avoid a lot of that torso rotation where you're kind of rotating left and right. We want to stay as stable and neutral as possible throughout the entire movement. So we're doing something called a Hindu push-up now, where you're starting this more like almost like a shoulder press position, going down into a press-up position, almost prone cobraing up and then coming back up. Again, another variation of a very good movement. You see how LeanBeefPatty's home workout may not be that exciting, may not be that wildly interesting with loads of different movements. What she is doing, which I really appreciate, is the fact that she's implementing a lot of variations of an effective movement, which I think, although it might be boring, is arguably more effective than a lot of the workouts I see online. I think a lot of times creators try and fill these home workouts with some potentially subpar movements and some movements that could arguably be a waste of time just to make it look fun and exciting, when the reality is simple is usually effective. And that's what LeanBeefPatty's doing right here, being simple and being effective, which I appreciate. Again, because you're coming down at this slight angle, it may shift a bit more of the emphasis onto the anterior delts, so being the shoulders here, and take a bit of emphasis away from the chest. But I respect it. I know that LeanBeefPatty's bodyweight movements in general are very good. She's very good with moving her body weight as such, so it's probably why she can do it so well. But I do really appreciate the fact she's including easier alternatives if that's something that you might benefit from. So what's going to be, it's a push-up plus like almost like a cat position, which is quite often adopted in the old mobility realm. Yeah, I mean, I respect it. I think it's fair. Again, it doesn't work the muscles like wildly differently to like a regular push-up, but I do appreciate how she is obviously implementing this as a bit of a change, as a bit of a variation for the press-up. Again, is it something I'd maybe throw in? Potentially not, but I do appreciate that people have different goals, different desires when it comes to training, and this is simply something that aligns with her goals and desires, even if it doesn't necessarily align with mine. I think in the grand scheme of things, LeanBeefPatty does some incredible things. Her workouts are great. She's really beginner friendly and beginner accommodating, and she's cutting a lot of the crap, for lack of a better term here, by basically putting together a really simple and effective push workout that doesn't include random bits and bobs that probably aren't that great for you. So I respect it. It's good. I do apologize if this video has been a bit shorter than normal. I have a bit of a tricky time at the moment, but I'm sure it'll pass eventually. I mean, it always does. Just one of those periods, I guess. But I just appreciate you being here and being so accommodating and also so supportive of the video I'm making. So I do appreciate you. As always, link down below in the description. You can obviously find the links to either purchase one of the TFNL workout guides, which are on sale currently through tfnl.uk website. You can also find the links to either work with myself, Beth, or Ryder on a one-to-one basis, in which will help coach you towards your goals, or you can have a look at the Train Hero group coaching programs, which are affordable means of coaching where I essentially create a program for the community and we all will interact and talk to each other through the Train Hero app or website, which costs less than your Netflix subscription, in which you can work out at home, at the gym, or you can work out just like me, whichever one tickles your pickle. But thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my maybe, I think, a bit low energy waffle today, and I do apologize, and thank you for tolerating the video.